The boy casually bought a talent in the convenience store of the gods. With him, I could stand shoulder to shoulder with the gods even in a mortal body. If I was lucky enough, I could even activate a buy one get one free offer. That meant that Su Liao-chun might one day be able to kill gods. However, just 3 days ago, Su Liao-chun was still a high school student wasting his time. That day, Su Liao-chun finally mustered up the courage to confess his love to the school beauty, Liu Ryan. Su Liao-chun also asked him to join him in a game. To his surprise, Liu Ryan instantly accepted, but on one condition: Su Liao-chun had to play as the team's healer. After returning home, Si Liao-chen didn't waste any time. He immediately put on his game helmet. In the next instant, Si Liao-chen's body was dragged into a virtual space. It was a hyper-realistic game that was sweeping the world. A virtual world built on myths and legends from all over the world. Players could immerse themselves in endless adventures. The game offered 12 classes to choose from. Si Liao-chen assumed that the healer Liu Rin mentioned must be the kind of support. In Su Liao-chen's heart, he thought this counted as his first date with Xiaomi. So Su Liao-chen deliberately chose a suit as his starting outfit. The next second, lightning flashed across the sky like a silver snake. Immediately, an unstoppable surge of energy rushed through the wires and into Su Liao-chen's body. The searing pain clouded Si Liao-chen's consciousness in an instant. When the data upload finished, Si Liao-chen found himself standing in the middle of an arid desert. It felt as if a powerful energy had just hit Si Liao-chen's head, like a concreting and numbing electric shock. Si Liao-chen slowly stood up and looked into the distance. Although this was Si Liao-chen's first time playing the game, he knew that the starting area should have an NPC village. The realism was amazing. Si Liao-chen quickly typed Xiaomi's in-game name into the search bar. But 2.5 seconds later, the system replied. The player was not found. However, Su Liao-chen was sure that the Xiaomi ID was correct. I couldn't be wrong. In that case, Su Liao-chen decided to head to the initial village and meet her there. But after walking for several hours, Su Liao-chen still hadn't left the desert. In addition to losing contact with Xiaomi, Su Liao-chen's liaison with customer service had also been completely interrupted. A growing dread arose. What would happen if the home village didn't exist at all? In this scorching heat, Su Liao-chen could pass out from dehydration at any moment. Su Liao-chen quickly opened the logout panel. The screen replied, "Logout not available." Refusing to accept it, Su Liao-chen hit the logout button over and over again. The system issued a new mission: to survive in this desert. Reward unknown. Penalty unknown. In the following hours, Su Liao-chen tried everything he could think of. However, he still couldn't escape from this cursed place. Was Su Liao-chen really going to be trapped here forever? The vague reward of the mission could be the key to getting out. Su Liao-chen decided to obey her and concentrate on survival. Under the scorching sun, Su Liao-chen's body fell into severe dehydration. Su Liao-chen recalled a bald survivor on a TV show saying that natural springs often appear near the limestone. Following the line of rocks, Su Liao-chen moved on. He did not notice that a drooling beast was raising its head behind him. Soon, Si Liao-chen discovers a spring. Si Liao-chen lunged forward and swallowed puffs of water. After recovering, Si Liao-chen opened the system panel, thinking a lot about how to survive here. Next, Su Liao-chen opened the starter gift package. To his surprise, despite choosing a healer, a support class, the system granted him a long sword as a starting weapon. That was a lifesaver. If it had been just a healing staff, Su Liao-chen could hardly have survived in this environment. Also, in the real world, Su Liao-chen was the 6th youngest ranked swordsman in the Dragon Nation. Su Liao-chen then headed further into the cave. What he saw made his stomach turn. Piles and piles of bones carpeted the floor. Most likely, Su Liao-chen had entered a beast's lair, too careless. I should have explored first. The moment Si Liao-san turned his head, a monstrous creature lunged at him, with its jaws gaping open. Siliao San fell into a crouch by reflex, sliding past the ambush. The cabin identified the beast, an exclusive monster of the desert/desert wolf. Built for speed, overcoming it was impossible. Suliao Chan would have to face and fight. Suliao Chan took out his newly acquired starter long sword. He crashed a low shoulder check, sliding past the wolf's claw strike. While turning, Siliao Chen cut straight down. Clang! A crack spread across the leaf. Numbing needles pierced through Siliao Chen's hands. The wolf capitalized by whipping his tail as he closed the gap. A heartbeat later, Siliao Chen crashed into the stone wall behind him. System tip: tactics beyond speed. The defense of the desert wolf is formidable. Attacks from lower-level players are nullified. Only blows to the exposed belly deal damage. That explained it. He had been protecting his stomach at every exchange. The wolf lashed out again, trying to bite, still knowing the weak point. The speed difference did not give Siliao Chen a chance to reach the belly. With his health at a minimum, and one stroke away from defeat, Siliao Chen came up with an idea. Siliao Chen approached and deliberately offered his right shoulder. Instinct took over. The wolf swooped in without hesitation. At the same instant, Siliao Chen's sword cleanly pierced through his abdomen. A column of golden light descended, enveloping Siliao Chen as disbelief flickered on his face. It is not surprising that players invaded this game by leveling up instantly and completely healing. An incredible advantage at first. One thing tormented Siliao Chen: the store icon hidden at the bottom left of the user interface. What was it? After a pause, Siliao Chen pressed enter. In an instant, a cascade of gold-level equipment materialized before Siliao Chen. So this was the so-called hidden store. Beyond the weapons in front of him, different types of objects could be unlocked in each level stage. Then Siliao Qian's finger accidentally pressed the mercenary show at the bottom. In an instant, countless rays of golden light fell like rain. Status of gods of all forms lined up before Siliao Chen. Offensive guys, defensive guys, magic guys, killer guys. But that last kind of support seemed frankly absurd. Was the system planning to make Su Lechen spend his life alone in this cursed place? A message appeared. The player only meets the requirements to unlock the daily goods. Unlock now. I even had to ask. Only a fool would refuse. Once access was granted, Siliao Chen immediately took food out of the tent to fill his stomach. At the same time, Siliao Chen opened the statistics assignment panel. As far as I knew, the distribution of points was crucial. It defined the entire path of a player's growth. And from the fight now, Siliao Chen realized one truth. Although he was only 5 levels below the desert wolf, the difference in strength and speed was like worlds apart. If he was facing stronger beasts, victory would require absolute mastery in power and agility. So Siliao Chen chose to assign his stats: 5 constitution, 10 strength, 10 agility, 5 constitution points. To prevent his health from plummeting, 10 in strength for a potential of instant death, and 10 in agility. To match the speed of most monsters. Suddenly, the howling of a wolf broke the silence. Siliao Chen turned around, realizing that the stench of the dead wolf must have attracted his pack. However, even when dozens of desert wolves appeared, Siliao Chen didn't feel any fear. Siliao Chen did not feel any fear, just his battle hunger surging to the top. His punches went straight through the wolves' defenses. With each shortcut, another one fell in one fell swoop. This had to be the effect of his increased stats, which also sharpened Siliao Chen's sword skill. With a roar, a silvery light enveloped Siliao Chen as it swept through the pack like an unstoppable storm. When the carnage was over, Siliao King's level shot up to 15. It was now clear that grinding monsters to increase their stats was the only way to survive the desert. When midnight came, Siliao King came out of the wolf's lair. The evening lacked the scorching heat of the day, so it was the perfect time to look for an exit. Suddenly, Siliao Chen's left foot tripped over something hairy. When he looked up, he found a pile of dead bodies of wolves from the wasteland. The sight sent a shiver of surprise through Siliao Chen. Could there be someone else trapped here too? Judging by the wolf state, such a person must be terribly strong. At the edge of the cliff, a humanoid figure was throwing wolf bodies into the abyss. But when Siliao Chun reached the cliff, the figure had disappeared. While examining the corpses, Siliao Chun noticed a shared trait. They were wrinkled and dry, as if their blood had been completely drained. At that thought, an indescribable wave of fear swept through Siliao Chun. Could something so cruel even be called human? Trapped here like him, this being was much more terrifying than any desert wolf. Suddenly, a red system alert flashed. High-level way of life detected. The player must evacuate immediately. The warning clicked. Juliao turned around. From the ground, a tentacle summarizing droplets of blood emerged. Then a creature unlike anything I had ever seen before stepped forward. Su Liao Chen's body trembled uncontrollably. This was the innate suppression of a high-level predator. If it wasn't for his increased agility when leveling up, that tentacle would have gone through him by now. Before his eyes, the creature's severed arm was regenerated into a new hand. The system showed his name, the Wandering Dominator, the alpha predator of the desert, unparalleled in speed, feeding on monster meat. Sitting at the top of the food chain, a cold sweat ran down Su Liao Chen's forehead. This monster was overwhelmingly strong. Even after giving his all, Su Liao Chen was crushed under his aura. For the first time in his life, Su Liao Chen felt real fear. In the blink of an eye, the figure of the Dominator closed the distance. Su Liao Chen twisted to the side, barely dodging the crushing fist. Seizing the momentum, he put it behind him. He brandished his long sword with all his might. For an instant, only one image lingered before his eyes. The royal body had already moved to Su Liao Chen's flank, with the fist pointing at his face. The force hit him like a landslide, sending Su Liao Chen flying backwards again and again. No wonder the system called him the absolute master of speed. His speed was monstrous. Then the Dominator's mouth formed a few confused words. A second later, he plunged another fist into Siliao Qin's stomach. The blood gushed from his mouth in a violent gush. That blow could have killed him directly, but the Dominator had deliberately restrained himself. Under Siliao Qin's confused gaze, he crouched down. He even handed back the long sword he had knocked down. He then gesticulated through his own throat, instructing Siliao Qin to strike. A shiver ran down Siliao Chen's spine. This creature was playing cat and mouse. Most of the time, when a cat catches a mouse, it does not immediately eat it. He plays with it first, savoring the thrill of tormenting his prey. That was exactly what the Dominator did, tormenting Su Liao Chun until dawn. By then, Su Liao Chun was completely exhausted, and the durability of his weapon dropped below 10%. He collapsed on the floor, bitterly admitting to himself, the creature was too strong. With his current agility, he couldn't keep up at all. The Dominator advanced and grabbed Su Liao Chun by the neck. He lifted it into the air, then, speaking in a human tongue, he mocked. So this is humanity living like ants, so pathetic and small. Before his words faded away, a dazzling sword light flashed on his chest. Bastard, you're nothing but a worm strutting in the desert. With those words, human dignity rekindled Siliao Chen's fighting spirit. He thought about his mother, he thought about his friends. He wouldn't die here. Siliao Chen's grip tightened on his longsword, the blade shining sharp under the crackle of lightning. With a thunderous rumble, a silver lightning split wide open the dark sky. At that moment, Siliao Chen stood like a war god, returned from some ancient battlefield. His body is as unbreakable as iron. System indication. The Su Liao Qin player's battle will has reached its peak. Blessing of the Dinya, the desert was activated. All the stats, plus 100%. The Dominator looked at him, and, for the first time, an expression of satisfaction appeared. Well, you're the most interesting human I've encountered in 100 years. Driven by the murderous intention, Su Liao Chun poured that murderous wool into his sword. His swordsmanship rose to a height of that I've never reached before. With a powerful blow, Su Liao Chen's attack crashed into the Dominator. Cut, blood gushed from the creature's mouth. A dark glow shone in Su Liao Chen's eyes. In the next instant, their movements violently collided, filling the battlefield. battle with flickering leaves and shadows. When the durability of his weapon finally reached 0, Silao Chen discarded his long sword by plunging his elbow down. His body shot forward, his left fist smashing like lightning. With a single blow, the Dominator staggered back. In defeat, fist as a blade, wind as an edge, body as a vessel. At that moment, Su Liao Chun fused the sword handling into his fists. The wild glint in his eyes was totally chilling. However, when he reached the place where the Dominator had fallen, there were only falling rocks left. Then a suffocating aura arose from behind. Silly human, the cat and mouse game ends now. Several twisted tentacles sprouted from the Dominator's back. She had entered her second form enraged. The creature floated above the ground, cradling a dark violet orb in its palm. Over his head, the spectral figure of a blinder emerged. Numb with despair, Su Liao Chan accepted the truth. He had used every last move, and still he couldn't win. In the next instant, the Dominator brandished his huge hand. Above, the blinder reflected it, cutting with his scythe. Su Liaochen stretched out his arms, helpless, the blood gushing from his lips. "Forgive me, mother, I couldn't survive after all." System alert, voice detected. The player Su Liaochen AHP has dropped to 0, entering the state of death. When consciousness returned, Su Liaochen realized that he had not really died. I was inside a ramshackle hovel. For a moment, her heart was filled with excitement. He thought he had finally returned to reality. But when he looked out the window, the scene outside looked nothing like the real world. However, the game's interface had not disappeared. That meant that Siliao Chan was still trapped inside the game world, but he had clearly been killed by the Dominator. According to the rules of the game, he should have been forcibly expelled, even if he could not return to reality. I shouldn't be stuck here like this anymore. Even stranger, every wound on Siliao Chen's body had completely healed. Just then, a red-haired girl pushed the door open. When he saw Siliao Chen awake, his expression flickered with panic. Their gazes crossed, and the silence filled the room with an uncomfortable tension. A moment later, he turned around and left. When she returned, an old man was following her. It turned out that this old man named Abu had found Siliao Chun half dead while hunting, and saved him. What surprised Siliao Chun the most was that this was not the game world he imagined or the initial village. These people were not NPCs or players. They couldn't even see the windows of the game. To them, Su Liao Chun just looked like a fool waving at the empty air. Eventually, Su Liao Chun learned the truth. This was a real world, and no one here could leave. More precisely, no one trapped in the Latini desert could ever escape. About 10 years ago, Abul and Salili had been hunting a dragon on the Bergama continent when a storm hit. When they woke up, they found themselves here. This place, they said, was the legendary Latinian desert, a prison designed to hold the gods. For the humans lost here, the only way to regain freedom was to find the temple of Caligli. But the desert stretched like an endless labyrinth. Countless had searched for that temple. None had returned alive. Over time, those trapped here gave up on the idea of escaping. Many newcomers, as if Liao Chun had once refused to listen, determined to leave, but they all perished at the edge of the desert. With a sigh, Abulai urged Su Liao Chun to rest well and abandon any hope of leaving this place. At that moment, Su Liao Chun found himself believing Abulai's words. He recalled the Dominator saying that he was the most interesting opponent he had faced in 100 years. Which meant that his past encounters were probably humans who had tried to find the Kedli temple. Just then, a system window appeared. God-level quest activated. Kagili Temple. Objective: the player Sulyakin must earn the protection of the god of Kagili in order to be reborn. In return, Sulyakin was given the task of unsealing the god. The requirements of the mission: to locate the legendary temple of Kagile in the Latinia desert. Kill the sealing beast in Abri and release the god. Reward for completing. The key for the player Sulyaokian to leave the Latini desert. By the next day, Sulyaokian's wounds had almost completely healed. After a night of reflection, his thoughts were finally clear. Like Yugil, he must have suffered some accident in his original world, and been dragged to this desert, an unknown force. Somewhere in this desert, a god named Kaveji was imprisoned. Suliokin's mission was to find the temple, break the seal, and by doing so, obtain the key to escape, and hopefully return to reality. Pointing to the horizon, Suliokin asked Salili, "That's the Latin desert ahead, right?" Saul Lily replied dryly, "That's just the tip of the iceberg. In truth, we are in the very center of the desert. It extends in all directions." Hearing that, Sikin realized how overwhelming the task was. No wonder no one has found a temple in all these years. If every direction were endless sand, the search would be colossal. Then, Siliao-chun asked Sal and Li to take him to the nearby city first to get acquainted with the surroundings. As they were making their way along the path, several dark figures suddenly rushed into their path. Siliao-chen's pupil shrank. He pulled Sileli aside just in time. When the fog cleared, a group of young thugs with Arapiento equipment emerged. But before Siliao-chen could act, Sale moved him first. His eyes flashed coldly as he threw a prison of flames, fixing his gaze on the youths in front of them. Then Sale turned to warn Gilao-chan to be alert. These were no ordinary hunters, they were ruthless bandit hunters. Instead of venturing into safe areas of the desert, they lived by stealing prey from others. Among them, a young man named Baboan was their leader. As he spoke, Sale conjured two fireballs into his hands. She advanced by blocking Siliao-chun behind her. Siliao-chun returns and seeks help from your grandfather. But Siliao-chun shook his head. "Sorry, I can't do that. The word retired is not in my dictionary. Besides, you saved my life. I will not abandon you." Before he could finish, a huge hand shot out, hitting Siliao-chen's head hard against a tree. "Crap, you're terribly cocky. Don't you know that Sally Lee is mine? A toad like you dares to dream of swan meat." Bob Oven lifted Siliao-chen's head and scoffed. "Boy, over here, words don't mean anything." In the next instant, Siliao-chen twisted his arm and caught Babone's wrist. "Are your sneak attacks supposed to impress me?" With a surge of force, she dislocated his wrist, her lips curled in disdain. "Looks like you're not that tough after all." Siliao-chan followed up with a vicious uppercut straight to Babin's face. Babin looked at his right hand in shock, not expecting to be dislocated so easily. Even Julio-chan was a little surprised. I hadn't felt Babin's initial blow at all. Soon after, Sally explained to him why Baboan had been harassing them endlessly. It turned out that Baboan had fallen in love with her at first sight. After being roundly rejected, he refused to give up. And the way Siliao-chun and Sally had been whispering to him seemed like a flirting couple to him, something he couldn't stand. Bob Aubin pointed his finger at Siliao-chen's nose, mocking him. Did he dare to fight a real duel between men? If Siliao-chen won, he swore that he would never bother Sally Lee again. At that moment, a system window appeared. Side quest activated, Shadow Madness. Objective: the player Siliao-chun must defeat the shadow assassin Baboan. Reward: La Tinia Desert Map. Siliao-chun frowned as he saw the window. He did not expect to encounter a side quest, and the reward was the complete map of the desert. It had all felt eerily strange. Since he entered this world, his destiny seemed to be directed by invisible hands. First getting trapped, unable to log out, then being killed only to be resurrected with Koregli's blessing. Then being rescued by a Buell, and finding out the secret of the temple. And now completing this side quest would grant him the complete map of the Tinia Desert. Taken separately, each event made sense. But together, it was too much of a coincidence, like a gigantic invisible hand pushing Julio-chin forward. Still, there was no turning back. Julio-chin stepped forward, declaring, "Well, then it's decided." Sally stared at him, disbelief shining in her eyes. But since he had accepted, I couldn't argue anymore. She solemnly warned him. Bob Oven was the strongest shadow swordsman in the city, wielding the power of darkness itself. His speed was unmatched, his attacks devastating. No wonder he was the leader of the bandit hunter. So Sale urged Jiao-chun to be careful. He just smiled, "Don't worry," and headed to the fight. Seeing Su Liao Chun unarmed, Baboan casually threw a spare long sword at him. He wouldn't let his opponent use excuses after losing. Su Liao Chun caught the sword, curling his lips. "I didn't think you'd play fair for once." The two lackeys of Babin exchanged looks of surprise. In all the years they had followed him, they had never seen their boss so serious. In the next instant, Babin's figure blurred and appeared right in front of Su Liao Chun. A wave of dark energy enveloped him, covering his entire body. Su Liao Chun instantly raised his sword across his body, intercepting the fierce blow that Baboan knocked down. Then, in the reflection of his sword, Su Liao Chun saw something shocking. Another Baboan had appeared right behind him. He quickly pushed the Baboan away from the front, turning just in time to block the blow from behind. But under the double assault, he still received a sword cut. The system sounded a warning: IHP below 300, the mission will fail automatically. Coughing up blood, Su Liao Chun immediately launched his active healer skill, restoring the health he had just lost. The two lackeys openly mocked. "He is a healer and dares to duel with our boss." Babin's face twisted with contempt. To him, fighting a healer was nothing more than an insult to a shadow assassin. And Yao Chen smiled. "What's wrong? Too scared, so you make excuses. It turns out that you are not only petty, you are also a coward." The word went deep. Bobo Ben was completely enraged. With a roar, he split to more shadow clones. Liao Chun gritted her teeth. This bastard could create 3 of himself when it would be anything but easy. Even worse, Babin could not only control the clones, he could also swap positions with them at will. The previous blow had landed due to that sudden change. Now Babin unleashed his full force, flooding the battlefield with the power of the shadow. Babin then ordered his clone to the right. "Go deal with this useless garbage." In the next second, a crushing aura surged directly towards Siliakin. He chose to block first, waiting for the right moment to counterattack, but the pressure was stronger than before. The clone in front of him was clearly upgraded. He had at least 80% of Babin's true strength, and there wasn't just one of them. Almost instantly, another clone materialized behind Su Liao Chun. In the blink of an eye, their figures were less than a hair's breadth away. Clang, the sound resounded, leaving everyone frozen in disbelief. Even Baboan himself was stunned. Like the original, I knew very well that that hit should have been a guaranteed hit. Su Liakin couldn't believe it either, his face betraying the relief of a narrow escape. Fortunately, the sneak attack activated his healer's hidden ability, Lightning Strike, which blocked a fatal blow and boosted his next attack. Exhaling a trembling breath, Julia Akin muttered to himself, "Too close without such an ability, he would already be a corpse." Babin's lips twisted into a wild smile. He had no intention of holding back any longer. He began to chant an incantation. Suddenly, the long sword in Hulio Chen's hand was snatched away. In the next instant, Babin fused his 2 swords, forging them into a single new weapon. At the same time, he and his clones synchronized their intention, unleashing the ultimate skill of the shadow assassin, Desolation Strike. Purple shadows emerged like an angry tide, engulfing Siliokian. At the same time, a sharp arrow whistled past, pointing directly at him. Siliokian twisted his body, narrowly dodging, but he was still taken by surprise, several fresh cuts opening up across his body. A system alert flashed. Warning, player's AHP reduced to 2/3 with no weapon in hand. Si Liao Chen had no way to fight back. A heartbeat later, interlocking shadow leaves formed a cage that closed around her. Seeing this, Baboan let out a long sigh and sneered. "Si Liao Chun, is that all you have? I'll make sure you at least leave a complete corpse." But the next instant, his gaze froze as if a terror pierced his soul. Before him, 2 overwhelmingly powerful figures had appeared. The battlefield fell into absolute silence. In the center was a Buell, raising his right palm to effortlessly block Juliao Chin's thunderous strike. With a slight push, he calmly said, "That's enough for today." Babin's voice rose defiantly, with a resounding laugh. "Buell, do you think you can just get them out of here? I'm not the same baboon I was before. Madness flashed in his eyes. Abul paused for a moment, though he did not turn around. His voice was cold. If he hadn't blocked Su Lechen's punch right now, you wouldn't even be here to talk. Boboen's reason completely collapsed, disbelief twisting her face. Deep down, I couldn't accept the truth that I had been defeated by a healer. At that moment, a system message appeared, side mission completed, defeat Boboen. Without another word, Abul led them away from the battlefield. Back at the house, Sally carefully tended to Siliokin's wounds before quietly leaving. However, Siliokin's mind was clouded by doubt. He had dared to accept the duel because he believed in the automatic healing mechanism after leveling up, but completing the quest had not given him a level. Clearly, there was a lot more about the system that I didn't understand. Still, there was some good news. The reward map clearly marked the location of the Ko Gile Temple. Once his wounds healed, he could leave immediately. There was also another reward, a hidden key. According to the system, it required a mystery chest to unlock, and such chests only randomly dropped in battle. Never available in the store. At that moment, Abule came to check on Si Liaochen's wounds. Si Liaochen smiled, and said that he was fine, that in less than 3 days, he would be completely cured. Then, Abu started telling him a story from a long time ago, on a stormy night more than 10 years ago. A grotesque monster had brutally attacked a village. When Abul arrived, there was only one child left alive. The monster was fearsome, strong enough to exchange blows with a younger Abul. In the end, Abul knocked him down, and left him seriously injured. Later, he helped the boy bury his family, and even welcomed him as a disciple. Hearing this, Si Liaochen immediately realized that the boy was none other than Boboen. Bobo Ben had grown up believing that his only purpose was to avenge his parents, but Abu tried to dissuade him by warning them that in the desert of Latinia, the monsters were countless, and the one who killed his parents was just a drop in the ocean. If Babin recklessly sought revenge, he would be killed by other beasts before even reaching the culprit. Due to this shock, he finally separated from Abul. Finishing his story, Abul got up slowly, a shadow of sadness on his expression. Si Liaochen's eyebrows furrowed. If even someone as strong as Abu considered the Latini desert a death trap, then its true horrors must be far beyond imagination. Although he now had the detailed location of the Karaguli temple, charging with his current strength might mean dying in the arena before even reaching it. So his Liaochen called to him, "Wait, Grandpa Abul, I want to become your disciple. Once I get strong enough, I'll find a way to get you all out of here." Hearing his plea, Abul did not stop what he was doing. He just told Juliao Chan to have a good rest. Seeing his back, Juliao Chan felt discouraged. He had been too impulsive. Even someone as diligent as Bao Bon had parted ways with Abul over this. How could a stranger of only 2 days old expect anything better? Just as regret filled his chest, Abul's aging voice came through the patter of the rain. "Tomorrow morning, wait for me on the hillside. If you can pass the test, I will take you as my disciple." In truth, Abul himself was restless. His promise had slipped away in a moment of excitement. However, in that battle, he had witnessed Si Liaochen's unwavering will to fight. That single blow had even cracked his strongest defensive skill, the Thunder Shield. Deep down, he felt that maybe this guy could really get them out of the Tinia desert. Once Abul's figure disappeared, the system showed a new routine mission. The content was simple, basic physical training. At dawn the next morning, before the sun rose, Su Liaochen arrived at the hillside to start his training. At first, he did not feel tired at all. On the contrary, he was more excited than when addressing problems at school. But after 2.5 hours, he collapsed on the floor completely exhausted. Completing the training mission raised his level and assigned his points to intelligence and endurance. Aside from speed, those two stats were crucial for a healer. Just then, Sally Lee came over carrying breakfast. She had thought that Julio Chan had already left to find a way out of the Tinia desert, but then she learned from Abul that he was still here. When he heard that Abul had agreed to take him as a disciple, he was surprised. Until now, Abul had only accepted Boboen. Countless young people from the city had come in search of your fabric, only to be rejected. What intrigued her even more was what kind of elemental ability Zhu Liao-san would awaken. While biting into a bun, Su Liao-chen asked, "But am I not already a healer? Why would I still need an awakening?" "It's not the same," Salili explained. "Healing is the profession given to you by the gods. However, your elemental attribute must be awakened through training. For example, mine is fire, Abulay's is lightning. Bob Oven used to be just an ordinary killer, but after Silver woke up, he became a 1 in a million shadow killer. Everyone woke up something different. In short, your profession guides your path, but your element determines your combat skills." At that moment, Xiao Chan finally understood that staying here had been the right decision. What he needed most now was to awaken his elemental attribute. Then, Sale began to explain more about the world itself to him. It was composed of 5 continents. The one they lived in, Bolzas, was the meeting place of humans and the nerve center of the world. To the west was Magura, formerly known as the homeland of the Dragon Knights. To the north stretched the icy Kusanchido, ruled by giants and furious beasts. In the east was Bergama, where the elves, masters of magic, lived, and to the south was Chubanik, home of the dwarves. Famous for their incomparable forging arts, that land was also called the end of the world. Beyond Chuvanik stretched the endless sea, a gateway to the divine kingdom. The legend said that those who crossed it would reach the abode of the gods and be granted unlimited power. At first, Sagilia dismissed it as nothing more than a myth, but since she got trapped in the Letinella Desert, another place that was believed to exist only in legend, she began to believe that such stories could be true. Not long after, Abu appeared to them. He explained that waking up an element was not as complicated as it seemed. One only needed to calm the mind, sharpen the senses, and truly feel the flow of elemental power within. However, before that, Su Liao-chan would need to pass his test. As he spoke, Abu inscribed a brilliant teleportation array on the ground for him. On the other side was a beast camp, on the edge of the Tinia Desert. He revealed that he had discovered it while hunting, and the proof was clear. Within 2.5 days, Su Liao-chen must kill the Beast King and bring back his head. Only then will he be recognized as worthy. With that, Abul solemnly placed his long-standing sword into Su Liao-chen's hands. Su Liao-chen took the long sword from Abul's hand with a steady gaze. He declared that he had no regrets and swore that he would pass the test. With that, he boldly entered the teleportation array. At the same time, the system generated a new search for reality based on his choice. On the other side, Abu watched him as his figure faded away, with a gloomy expression. In truth, he hadn't told Su Liao-chan that only elemental power could harm the Beast King. And such power could only be awakened when pushed to the brink of despair. As the light faded, Su Liao-chan found himself in a land of shattered rocks. Unlike the desert on Earth, the ground here was covered with black sand. The air had a pungent and disgusting stench. Knowing that his current strength was insufficient to face the Beast King, Su Liao-chan decided to hunt minor monsters first and raise his level, but suddenly, a life silently whipped towards the back of his head. He stepped aside just in time, narrowly avoiding the blow. "I didn't expect to be attacked the moment I arrived here. Looks like Abul's test won't be simple," he thought grimly. A green-skinned winged monster emerged before him. It was the infamous Dotem, one of the strangest creatures of the Tinia Desert. Without hesitation, Su Liao-chan drew the diamond-shaped longsword that Yu-Gil had entrusted to him. The next instant, he charged forward. With a sharp slash, he cut off the bit that had just tried to ambush him. He then drove the blade deep into the creature's torso. The power arose as he twisted the sword violently inside his body. Finally, Su Liao-chan ripped off the weapon, releasing Doden's body cleanly in half. Ding! A crisp sound rang out when the system notified. The player Su Liao-chan has killed Dotem. Reward 35,000 exp. Level up to 17. Before Su Liao-chan could even catch his breath, he turned to find an entire horde of Dotem surging towards him. It wasn't long before Julio-chan ended the fight with ease. By then, his level had already risen to 25, just enough to unlock the potion store. The catch, however, was that unlocking it required you to sacrifice 15 levels, a frustrating cost. If every store followed this pattern, then as leveling up became more difficult later on, gaining access to new stores would become more and more difficult. According to his calculations, fully unlocking the final mercenary shop would require a staggering 300 levels in total. From a strategic point of view, it seemed wiser to prioritize the unlocking of higher-level stores from the very beginning. Still, even though leveling up felt urgent, Su Liao-chen chose to unlock the potion shop first. Inside, there was an item called Berserker's Lament, a potion that instantly restored 50% of the user's status bar, and continued to regenerate health over time, of the next 10 seconds. Essentially, he was granting a second life against the Beast King. Such an article would be a powerful trump card. After a few purchases, his level was lowered to level 1, since shopping in the store also consumed levels. Fortunately, there was a silver lining. Every time levels were spent, the obtained attribute points did not disappear. They were fully refunded for redistribution. This allowed Si Liao-chen to adapt his construction for different stages. Preparing for the Beast King, he evenly allocated his most crucial stats. Then he opened the general store and bought some loaves of bread to replenish his stamina. By now, almost 12 hours had passed, leaving him with less than 2 days until the deadline with Abule. Meanwhile, Salil could not understand why Abule had given him such a dangerous test. After all, both his and Baboan's tests have been carried out safely inside the village, always under the watchful eye of Abulet. In truth, even Abulet could not fully explain himself. His original intention had been to show Su Liao-chen the dangers of the beast lair in the hope of dissuading him from leaving the Tinia desert. But now he realized that he harbored a selfish hope inside, that Su Liao-chen could succeed, and one day get them all out of this cursed desert. Meanwhile, Su Liao-chen had already been walking around the beast grounds for 2.5 hours, and hadn't even seen the shadow of a single mushroom. According to the map, Si Liao-chen realized that he was already close to the innermost beast lair. Just then, a cry for help echoed from behind, a mother and her child. They ran to him, desperately begging him for protection from the monsters that were chasing them. Su Liao-chen didn't have time to wonder why an unarmed mother and child would show up in such a dangerous place. 3 huge monsters were already approaching from the front. The system window appeared. The 2 dark-colored ones were common low-level monsters in the Alatinia desert, known for their high defense and tank-like endurance. The one in the center, however, was much more dangerous. Rasidril, a high-level level 40 beast with rudimentary intelligence, classified as a beast tamer type. It was clear that the Cayman had been summoned through Rasidril's beast taming ability. Otherwise, such monsters shouldn't even exist here. Without hesitation, Si Liao-chen grabbed his sword tightly and charged forward. His blade traced a brilliant cross-shaped cut on one of the komats. The blow left a deep, searing wound on his body. Although the komats had a formidable defense, their slowness was no match for him. In just a few moments, one collapsed under his assault. Now, only the leader Rasidril remained on the battlefield. However, without any other beasts around, his taming ability was useless. At this moment, Si Liao-chen's sword was already pressed against Rasidril's throat. He harshly demanded to know why he had been chasing the mother and the child. He remembered what Sally Lagar had once said, that the high-level monsters in the desert could understand human speech. Since the system classified Rasidril as such, he should be able to understand it. Rasidril did not respond directly. Instead, he mocked by claiming to be a servant of the gods, warning that killing him would bring a divine curse. At those words, Hu Liao-chen coldly scoffed and threw him aside. He then insisted on knowing the exact location of the beast's lair. This time, Rasidro agreed by pointing into the distance and saying that the looming black volcano was where the lair was located. But at the moment when Juliakin turned his head to look, Rasidril suddenly grabbed the throats of the mother and the child, gloating. "As strong as you are, you still can't protect them." With that, his whole body was filled with power. Su Liao-chen's gaze turned glacial. The next instant, he lashed out with a lightning-quick kick. Rasadril was shattered on the spot, blown to pieces. However, in that fleeting moment, Su Liao Chen felt another presence, another strong power nearby. Soon, a handsome young man came into view. His companions rushed to calm the terrified mother and the child. It turned out that they, too, had been dragged into the Tinia desert by some mysterious force. The young man's name was Brol, a warrior by class. One of his companions was the murderer, Philoga. The other was Luoyu, a healer like Siliokian. Siliokian then returned to the street. Gone Rasadril? He coolly stated that he had several questions, and that if Rasadril answered honestly, he could still be saved. Faced with the threat of death, Rasadril no longer dared to act arrogantly. From his words, Suliokin learned a terrifying truth. The monsters here were all stagnant, bound by the will of the gods. The gods had told them that any human who entered this desert was nothing but food granted by divine decree. Rizadar was simply carrying out those orders. According to what if Hyochin knew about the real world, Khepri was one of the strongest among the 9 pillars of Egyptian mythology that was said to be a manifestation of Ra himself. However, he was now imprisoned inside the desert prison of La Tinia. Since Rosidra admitted that he was ordered to guard this place, and the map pointed to the temple of Khepri in another direction. Could it be that other gods were also imprisoned near the beast's lair? At that moment, Bron took a step forward, declaring that he too wanted to discover the secrets of the Tinia desert, and decided to team up with Jil Yao Chun to kill the Beast King. Rachel, although she was a healer, could conjure protective barriers with elemental power, so she stayed behind to protect the mother and child. As for Rizidra, he would lead the way, ensuring that no time was lost in the desert. Meanwhile, in the city of Dirks, Ubri approached Bishop X and declared his intentions. X's face darkened instantly. For him, Aubrey was crazy to place his hope in a child who had not even awakened the elemental power. Even if they found the legendary temple of Khepri, defeating its guardians was almost impossible. Even worse, angering the gods could doom the entire city of Dirks. Therefore, Ix ordered Abel to go to the lair immediately, kill Su Yao Chun, and then kneel before the statue of the gods to repent. But Aber did not answer. Instead, he asked coldly, "Do you think I don't know about your dirty deeds? Those young people you tricked into entering the Tinia desert by claiming that they would find the Khepri temple were not all sacrifices you sent to die for the supposed gods in exchange for a fake peace and the villagers. Ignorant people even hail you as heroes. 10. You live by stepping on corpses. Don't you feel any guilt?" Hearing this, X's secrets were almost exposed, and rage overwhelmed him. He raised his hand with the intention of killing Aubrey, but the difference in strength was too great. Aubrey stood motionless, easily dispelling the attack. "Do you agree or not? I will fight the supposed gods in my own way." With that, Yuri lowered his hat and walked away. Elsewhere, inside the beast's lair, a group of beastmen brought out sacrifices to present to their king. Suddenly, a surge of icy energy shattered the prison cart. Several nearby beastmen froze instantly. A white-haired man came out from the crowd. "I am the Archmage Nam. I've come to free them." As he spoke, countless jagged ice spears formed before him. It was his signature skill, Ice Blade Storm. However, the moment those spears came close to the Beast King, an unknown force suspended her in the air, and she stared in disbelief. In the next instant, he too was lifted into the air by that same force. The Beast King slightly moved a finger, and Gamma's body exploded before everyone's eyes. Instantly, all movement ceased. They understood that this was a warning, a brutal demonstration of power. To resist here meant only one thing: certain death. Outside the beast's lair, Su Liao Chun and his companions fought their way through, and eliminated almost 80% of the surrounding beastmen. The closer they got to the lair, the more numerous and powerful the beastmen became. However, because of this, his level increased rapidly. Before long, they reached the entrance of the lair. Siliao Chan turned to Rosidra once again, confirming if this was really the entrance. But now, there was only one broken rope left behind them. Rosidra had clearly escaped during the battle. By now, he must have already gone to alert the Beast King. Still, the stench of blood emanating from the cave confirmed that this was, in fact, the lair. After walking for about 10 minutes inside, they did not encounter any beastmen. By logic, Residra could not have reported so quickly. Soon, a new challenge arose, a division into 3 of the tunnel that forced them to act separately. Ron then traced a magic stealth on Siliakan's palm, explaining that it was the fire door talisman. If either of them discovered a clue or fell into danger, chanting the incantation would teleport them side by side. With that, Broly and Faloga chose the left and right passages, while, after a brief exchange, Suliokan entered the middle path. The deeper he went, the stronger his sense of unease became. Soon, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen appeared before him. A level 47 monster, the Ghoul's Blinder. These were hunters in a pack with a terrifying bite force, and before the hour, there were at least 100 of them. But soon, he slaughtered the horde by raising his own level to 14, and because his hidden level had exceeded 50, including those spent on unlocking the store, 3 new class abilities were revealed. The highest Holy Light fires a beam of holy light that heals 500 AHP, while dealing 500 damage to enemies within 3 meters. The damage ignores the entire armor. The Divine Annihilation Slash instantly hits 20 nearby targets, dealing 60% of their maximum AHP as damage, while restoring 5% of that damage as health. Divine Speed removes all negative effects and grants accelerated movement for 40 seconds. During this time, each death restores 3% of AHP. However, I could only select 2. The combination of Holy Light and Divine Speed offered balance, both offensively and defensively. Meanwhile, pairing the Annihilation Slash with Divine Speed granted double recovery, greatly increasing combat survival. Either way, both builds relied on hand-to-hand combat to maintain health with Divine Speed acceleration, making it the core skill. Now came the choice between the chopping block of Divine Annihilation and the Pious Holy Light. Carefully compared, the Pious Holy Light had a relatively small attack range, and if it failed to hit the target, it would be almost completely ineffective. Therefore, it seemed that the combination of Divine Speed and Divine Annihilation Slash was the best option. With offense and defense rolled into one, it not only ensured that Su Liaoqian had enough production, but also prevented him from recklessly dying in a high-damage environment. At this moment, the stealth of the fire door in his hand wasn't showing any reaction, which meant that Broly Falobo were probably still safe. However, on the battlefield of Brawl, a graceful figure suddenly appeared. She seemed to be the leader of the Ghoul clan, as it was she who used her song to control the Ghoul's movements. In addition, the Ghoul Queen's song not only imposed control, but also weakened the resistance of its targets. At this moment, Brawl felt as if all the strength of his body had been completely exhausted. The Ghoul Queen then slowly approached with the intention of devouring him. He stretched out his huge hand and squeezed Brawl's head tightly, but just then a figure shot out, instantly cutting off the Ghoul Queen's arms. The Queen turned her gaze to Siliao Chun, surprise written all over her face. "So Derek couldn't kill you." Hearing this, Siliao Chun raised his hand and threw a severed head. "This should be the Derek you were talking about, right?" In fact, he was stronger than an ordinary ghoul. Seeing this scene, the Ghoul Queen could no longer suppress the fury in her heart. He opened his mouth and unleashed an ability resembling a sonic wave attack. At that moment, Bro shouted from behind, warning Su Yaokan that this was the Queen's opportunity skill, capable of paralyzing her target. However, just as the casting was completed, a lightning-fast figure crossed before his eyes. And in the next instant, the Ghoul Queen was beheaded on the spot. However, before they could breathe a sigh of relief, the stealth of the fire door in Su Liaoqian's hand suddenly throbbed with energy. At that time, on the battlefield of Faloga, his opponent was not a group of ghouls. Instead, it was a hellish snake with a terrifying level of 55. A prolonged high-intensity defense had already left him on the verge of exhaustion. But once the signal appeared, Su Liao Chun and Brawl quickly rushed to their battlefield. Immediately, Su Liao Chun swung his sword forward in a fierce slash. Taken by surprise, the infernal snake didn't have time to defend itself, and the blade hit directly on its forehead. With a high-pitched shriek towards the sky, he collapsed heavily on the ground, completely losing consciousness. Siliakan then examined the surroundings and found that, apart from the infernal snake, there were no other traces of monsters. It seemed that the path Faloga had chosen was in fact the true entrance, leading to the Beast King's lair. At this moment, Ron looked at the passage ahead hesitantly, worried that the Beast King might finish them off in one fell swoop. Hearing this, Siliao Chen turned to cheer up Beryl. The first thing to defeat a man is not his enemy, but the fear in his own heart. Besides, this is just a Beast King on the edge of the Tinia Desert. When we really leave this desert, even stronger monsters will be waiting for us. Only by strengthening our hearts can we seize the opportunity to regain freedom. At that moment, the Hell Snake, which had been briefly unconscious, suddenly opened its eyes again. He was floating in the air, his gaze sharp and fixed on them. Seeing this, they immediately assumed fighting stances. Beryl charged first. After all, as a warrior, he was best suited to resist the snake's initial assault. He jumped forward and launched a fierce kick directly at the snake's hardened body. Meanwhile, Faloga used wizard abilities from the rear to disrupt the snake's counterattack. A huge stone hand, conjured from the rock, descended from above. He tightly tightened it around the neck of the infernal snake. Attacked both from the front and from behind, the snake had no chance to notice Gilao Chun, hiding in the shadows. The next moment, his figure emerged like a ghost. He plunged his sword deep into the hard scales of the snake. With the cumulative bonus of his combined abilities, he twisted and swept his sword, opening a gap along the snake's spine. The sound of the meat splitting resounded. Finally, under the combined effort of the three of them, they took down the level 55 giant. And since the Hell Snake was a hidden boss beyond the enormous amount of experience, Sirioshin also obtained a hidden item, the Hellfire Gauntlet. When equipped, his attacks carried an additional 35 points of fire damage while boosting his other attribute points, granting him the equivalent of several extra levels. At that moment, Raul looked at his Liakan doubtfully. Before entering the lair, their strength had been on par, but since they separated until now, Su Liaochan's power had undergone an amazing transformation. He couldn't help but wonder which continent this mysterious power came from. Just then, a sound of life echoed from the dark passage ahead. Upon hearing it, both Siliao Qian and Brol immediately switched to battle position. The next moment, they move in unison, kicking forward. However, to his surprise, the one emerging from the shadows was Rizidra, who had already fled before. He explained that during the battle he had hit his head, and, in his dazed state, accidentally activated a trap switch here. That explained why they had encountered so many monsters along the way. Meanwhile, in another place, Abu opened a long-sealed wooden door for her. Inside lay a set of finely crafted armor. At that moment, Boboan was standing behind him. "I never thought that after all these years of hesitation, you would still come here. A long time ago, you never allowed Saliri and I to get close to this room. So this is where you kept the armor that followed you for half of your life." Abu's tone conveyed a faint trace of guilt to him. "It's more than just my armor. He carries with him everyone's hope for freedom." Then Boboan revealed his purpose. He had heard that Abul was forming an advance team to get out of the Tinia Desert, so he came here this time to sign up, because in his heart, he hoped that on the way he would be able to find the monster that had killed his parents. Meanwhile, under the leadership of Resiters, we finally arrived at the Beast King's central lair. Before entering, Su Liao-chun shared his plan with the other two teammates. Once inside, Residro would first take them to rescue his captured comrades. Upon hearing this, Broly and the others flatly refused. They would never abandon their comrades at such a dangerous moment. Just when Su Liao-chan was about to persuade them again, suddenly, the system displayed a red warning window. "Warning, unknown boss level power detected ahead." With the current strength of the player Su Liao King, the probability of victory is 10%. Do you want to finish the mission? Seeing Su Liao King's expression became solemn. By rights, he had worked hard to level up, and even though he hadn't mastered elemental power yet, his odds shouldn't have been as low as 10%. It was precisely this warning that strengthened his resolve. After all, if a solo chance was only 10%, then bringing Broly and the others would mean nothing but instant death at the hands of the Beast King. With this in mind, Zhao Chen turned around to reject his insistence. Defeating the Beast King is my mission. There is no need for them to risk their lives with me. In addition, following Residra to rescue the captives will not be easy either. At this, Braun gritted his teeth and replied that Gelio Chan was belittling him. If they were truly cowards, they would have never followed him to this point in the first place. At that moment, a strange surge of emotion welled up inside Siliao Chan. From childhood until now, whether in studying or fencing, he had faced all difficulties alone. Although he had never been crushed, he had often felt lonely. But now he tried something different. For the first time, he had teammates he could trust with his back. Residra then admitted that it would not be safe for him to enter. If the Beast King saw him, death would be certain. However, under his firm insistence, he joined the three of them to enter the central lair. But the moment they entered, an eerie feeling came over them. The chamber was completely empty. By all logic, Residra had been caught before, so there was no way he could have worn down the Beast King. Even Residra felt uncomfortable. Normally, this place was heavily guarded. Guarded, not desolate as it seemed now. And just then, with a thunderous crash, the stone door behind it slammed shut. Immediately, a ghostly green light enveloped Faloga completely, restricting him. Then he was lifted into the air by a strange invisible force. Siliao Qin looked up, and in front of him sat an imposing figure. That figure could only be the level 85 Beast King, Fenrir. At that instant, Faloga coughed up a mouthful of blood against his will. Seeing this, anger surged uncontrollably in Siliao Chen's heart. He grabbed his long sword tightly, and thrust it directly into the Beast King's face. With a resounding crash, the blow was blocked by Fenrir's powerful barrier. Fenrir then held up a single finger. With that, Su Liao Chun was thrown back. At the same time, Faloga fell from midair and landed in Brol's arms. At that moment, Su Liao Chun was stunned. His all-out attack had been effortlessly nullified. If he came to a real battle, his probability of victory would really be no more than 10%. Just then, Faloga, having recovered slightly, rejoined the fight. I conjure once again, a massive hand formed of stone and rubble. Bro jumped on him, channeling the strength of his legs into the giant hand, one of his combined techniques. But Fenrir merely cast a light glance. Instantly, his barrier reappeared, dissipating the attack with ease. On the other side, Su Liao Chen also brandished his sword, sending an energy blade slicing forward. With a deafening roar, every offensive blow on the battlefield vanished into nothingness. Fenrir was still sitting quietly in his place, his barrier completely intact. A mocking smile curved Fenrir's lips, then ominous arcs of lightning crackled between his hands. His barrier expanded outward at a terrifying speed. Roll and Folligan had no strength to resist, instantly overwhelmed. Sol Yao Intu was forced to support himself with his sword, using all his strength just to stay upright. His face was full of surprise as he looked at Fenrir. His power was beyond imagination. What seemed like a simple defensive skill actually entailed devastating offensive strength. And even now, this creature had not shown its full strength. From start to finish, he had only used one skill, but it had left them completely powerless. Then Fenrir suddenly stood up, clutching his face, while laughing maniacally. Pathetic insects, how ridiculously laughable they are. But since they've come this far, I guess I should at least entertain my guests. As he spoke, a thick fog broke out around him. His form faded away, completely disappearing into the fog. What? Did it fade away? Could it be some kind of stealth skill? At that moment, a beam of light shot out at an incredible speed towards Brol's side. The lightning collapsed and revealed Fenrir's true form. Now, Brol was paralyzed with terror as Fenrir loomed before him, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Without hesitation, Fenrir punched him in the abdomen. Brol fell to his knees in agony. He gritted his teeth looking at Fenrir, and struggled to get up with all his remaining strength, but his blow landed in vain. Fenrir casually raised his hand, pinching full force on Brol's punch. Brol immediately changed tactics by throwing his trademark flying kick. With a thud, he was knocked unconscious lying on the floor. Seeing this, Faloga hastened to drag Brol to safety. Now awake once more, Brol's face was full of respect. Because if Siliao Chen hadn't arrived in time to block Fenrir's blow, he would have been dead by now. And at this point, it was clear that the only one capable of even facing the Beast King was Siliao Chen himself. At that moment, even Fenrir was surprised. It seemed that he had underestimated Siliao Chen. This was the first time in years that someone managed to resist his attack. As he spoke, he slowly raised his left hand, condensing a sphere of dark purple light. The sphere then transformed into a terrifying wave of energy that headed straight towards Siliao Chen's face. However, he did not withdraw. Instead, he unleashed all his abilities at once by facing the attack head-on. It was a combination technique that I had never used before. Immediately after, he rushed forward with the speed granted by the divine speed. For the first time, a trace of fear appeared on Fenrir's face. Siliao Chan's sword relentlessly cut through his body, blow after blow. In the final blow, he unleashed his ultimate ability, Divine Annihilation Court. In an instant, countless lightning bolts like strands of energy coiled around Fenrir's body. With a thundering crash, Su Liaoqin's serpentine form flashed past, cutting in from behind, panting heavily. He stood looking straight ahead. He had already activated the passive blitz skill to increase the power of his combined hit. If even this could not hurt Fenrir, he would have nothing left to resort to. What he didn't know was that in Brol's eyes, he looked like an incarnate god of war. Then a burly figure stepped forward before them. Fenrir had put aside her crown, her long flowing hair only adding to the unfathomable aura she radiated. Seeing this, Residra panicked. As Fenrir's subordinate for a long time, he knew very well that his master was finally serious. He had unleashed the elemental power. At that moment, Su Liaoqian also felt a familiar pressure. This must be the Beast King's elemental force. The feeling was identical to when he had once faced Baboan. With a single sweeping motion, Fenrir raised his huge hand. A hideous skull was invoked. From within, countless wolf beasts gushed out in waves. His speed was so great that Siliao Chun didn't have time to evade, forced to cross his sword in defense. Fenrir then summoned a staff crafted from a skull. A mocking smile curved at the edge of her lips. In the next instant, his figure shone right before Su Liaochen. With a deafening rumble, the battlefield was flooded with a thick fog. Su Liaochen's long sword, which he had been using to defend himself, was snatched from his hands. As the smoke slowly dissipated, his body was already covered in wounds of various sizes, with the veins bulging as moans of pain escaped from his mouth. Fenrir continued to wave his staff, gathering a more terrifying power than before. At that moment, Gil Yaukin contemplated the scene before him in utter despair. In fact, the elemental power caused a fundamental change in the force. But now, Su Liaochen's body could no longer move, and every attack he had was already spent. Was this really the place where he would die? At this moment, Fenrir had completely fused with elemental power by transforming from his Orcish form to the higher form of a werewolf. Unable to dodge, Su Liaochen was hit like a living sandbag. After a brutal beating, he collapsed on the ground without strength. Fenrir let out a grotesque laugh and said, he mocked Su Liaochen as if he was a useless waste. In Su Liaochen's eyes now, there was only the glimmer of despair left. Since childhood, his classmates had made fun of the insect name his parents had given him. And because he excelled in his studies, and was favored by the professors, they gave him cruel nicknames, planting deep seeds of inferiority within him. When he finally mustered up the courage to accept his desk mate Xiaomi's invitation to team up, he ended up stuck in this damn world. At that moment, she felt as if the world had become silent, and even the last spark of hope of returning home had been extinguished. But then she thought, her mother, she must be so helpless now. After all, he had already been out for almost half a month. I couldn't fall here. His eyes became calm as dead water. Then suddenly, a thunderous boom echoed around him. Before everyone's eyes, a sacred radiance erupted, and a figure radiating an overwhelming pressure emerged from within. Sol Yao Chun was now standing, sword in hand, his posture firm, as if an ancient war god had descended. However, in his sea of consciousness, his consciousness suddenly moved to a strange unknown space. Looking at the scenery, he wondered if he had been killed by the Beast King, but soon, a figure appeared before him, Liao Chun. Welcome to my world. I know you want to know where this place is and who I am, but I must tell you with regret. Even I don't know where I'm coming from. I've almost forgotten how long I've been here. Tens of thousands of years must have passed, but when I woke up, a voice told me that one day a young man would appear to get me out of here, and you are the first human companion that I find. Zhu Liao Chen solemnly looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. What you're saying sounds absurd, but can you tell me how to get out of this place? Without warning, the middle-aged man fell to his knees. It's simple, accept me and become my teacher. At that moment, Zuliosi no longer cared if it was true or a lie. He advanced, extending the man's hand, and said, "Well, I accept." Immediately, his consciousness returned to the real world. It seemed that the man had not lied. Not only had he truly returned, but a new power was coursing through his body. The system showed a backslash. The player Liao Chun has successfully obtained the power of the chaos element. Then he understood at last that man was in fact the embodiment of his element chaos. His first elemental ability was called Annihilation, sacrificing 90% of his AHP to enter Annihilation mode, consuming 100 AHP per minute, while each hit dealt chaos damage that ignored the defense. The accessory that had been given to him by his grandfather, Abul, was now completely unsealed under the chaos power infusion. When he equipped himself, he greatly improved his mental attributes. At that moment, Fanir looked at him in disbelief. To think that after such serious injuries, Gilao Chan could still be standing, appearing completely unharmed. Then his figure shone once more as he charged straight towards Fanir. Feeling an oppressive force pressing down on him, Fanir chose to give his all, completely unleashing his elemental power. However, this time, his elemental force-infused barrier was destroyed in an instant. Fanir then grabbed his staff tightly and launched another counterattack. For him, Suliakan was too frightening an existence. So at this moment, he poured every ounce of his strength into a single goal, to completely crush him here. But Suliakan simply brandished his longsword, tracing arcs in the air, as he unleashed an elemental power fusion skill. Elemental Blitz. Blades of energy fell like lightning, carving indelible wounds into Fanir's body. Immediately after, he sacrificed 90% of his AHP and went into annihilation mode. A thunderous slash not only pierced through the silence of the air, but also shattered the Beast King's mask, the very symbol of the reign of Fenrir. Congratulations, player Liao Chun, for defeating the Beast King Fenrir. You have earned 400,000 experience points. The Beast King's quest completed. Reward, a black chest. At that moment, since the system was visible only to him, Broly and the others saw nothing but a flash of a strange green light. Rizidra, however, was completely shocked. Born and raised in this lair, he knew Fenrir's strength better than anyone. He had always believed that Fenrir was the strongest being on Earth. If it wasn't for witnessing it today, I could never have believed that someone even stronger existed. Even Zhu Liao Chun himself could hardly believe it. He had actually defeated the Beast King Fenrir. However, instead of joy, what arose inside him was a persistent feeling of dread. Just like before, the man who granted him the elemental power had only appeared when he was in a desperate situation. Could it be that his arrival in this world was orchestrated by someone pulling the strings behind the scenes? Glancing at the appointed time, Jolie Oaken turned to tell Broly and the others, "I'm coming. Go to rescue the captives. You're seriously injured, so stay here and wait." But just then his body suddenly became weak and blurry. When he woke up again, he found himself back in that familiar wooden house. A burning pain arose directly to his head. He remembered catching a glimpse of his grandfather, Abul, at the last moment. So he should have been the one who brought him back. But what happened to Broly Residra? At that moment, a system / appeared. There is still an unopened chest in your inventory. This reminded him that after completing the quest to defeat Babin, he had received a mysterious key. Perfect for unlocking the newly acquired black chest, but the items he had opened earlier had all been of normal quality. As the golden light filtered through the cracks, the system announced a / legendary obtained hidden item. However, to his surprise, the so-called legendary hidden object turned out to be an egg. Soon, cracks of different sizes began to spread across its surface. With a sharp crack, a little boy with horns on his head came out from inside, and, without any surprise, the little boy called Siliao Chun daddy. Feeling confused, Siliao Chun immediately asked the system to verify the child's origin. However, the system showed that there was no permission to identify the creature's information for now. It could only be accessed after an update. He also reminded her that the hatched creature had already bonded with him and should be carefully cared for. Seeing this, he became defiant and tried to push the child aside, but the next second, the child burst into tears. Immediately, the system issued a warning / Player, it has been detected that your Leosin tries to abandon this creature, starting the punishment. In the next moment, his figure was transported to an Arctic wasteland, and right in front of him was an Ali-class monster, the Icefield Marauder. The punishment was clear. He had to kill all the marauders in 30 minutes. If he failed, he would face twice as many monsters in a combined round. And if the child was attacked and killed during this period, his Liao Chan would be deleted by the system. At this moment, disbelief filled his eyes. Was this supposed legendary reward egg really a prize? It was more like a trap set to kill him at any moment. With no other choice, she took the child in her arms. He told the child firmly, "You must cling to me tightly. If you die, I won't survive either." Then he took out his long sword from his backpack. Meanwhile, Abul was discussing with Babin about forming a team to search for the Temple of Kibuli. But the situation was serious and almost no one was willing to join. After all, countless lifetimes had proven that opposing the gods only led to death. And for so long, they have been brainwashed with X's lies, making it almost impossible to break free of their deep-rooted beliefs. As it was, the plan to search for the temple had to be postponed. With only a few of them, leaving the Dinia desert was almost impossible. In the end, they decided to check first if Su Liao Chun had woken up. Meanwhile, Su Liao Chun finally managed just in time to wipe out all the marauders from the ice field. Soon after, his figure returned once more to the wooden house. At that moment, Shaolai also opened the door. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Excited, she picked up the small creature perched on Siliao Chen's head. Siliao Chen, where did this child come from? Hearing her question, he hastily made up an excuse, claiming that he had found the child by chance in the den of the beast. Soon after, Babin and Abulet arrived, both equally intrigued by the little creature. But since his Lechen had just woken up, Abul asked Salalay and Babin to go to the kitchen first and prepare some food. Then Abul solemnly apologized to Siliao Chen. It was his carelessness. He hadn't expected such a high-level monster to be hidden inside that beast's blood. His carelessness had almost cost Siliao Chen his life. Siliao Chen only smiled faintly. "This is not your fault, Grandpa Abul. That test was a choice I made after careful thought. Besides, if it wasn't for that test set by your men, maybe I would have never obtained the chaos power so soon." Then he told in detail the whole process of how he had obtained his elemental power. After listening to him, Abul's expression became extremely grave. He explained that the elemental power could not be taken to any spatial realm, nor could anyone be found within it. As for the so-called chaos element, I had only read about it in an ancient text. According to legend, tens of thousands of years ago, the evil god Morpheus descended upon the mortal world. Chaos, slaughter and evil engulfed everything. and humanity, struggling to survive, was forced to wage a war against him. But Morpheus was too powerful. The heroes of humanity could not resist the demonic legions under his command. In humanity's darkest hour, a warrior named Hilda stepped forward, wielding the element of chaos. He was strong enough to subdue even the legions of demons. After countless battles, Hilda's army finally cut off the head of the evil god, Morpheus. His soul was forever sealed inside, from the hellish prison of Tartarus. However, as the price of the stamp, Hilda remained trapped there for eternity. Therefore, Su Liao Chen assumed that the man he found was most likely the legendary human hero Hilda. Because the man's story bore a striking resemblance to the legend, Yubile then urged him not to reveal this matter to anyone else until the whole truth was known. After their conversation, Su Liao Chen took the little creature to the dining room. Since the child kept muttering, he temporarily gave Ruka that name. To his surprise, Residra had also returned. Given Residra's in-depth knowledge of the terrain of the Latini desert, having him as a guide would save them a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, Brol had been sent to the city's healing station. Meanwhile, in a distant castle, the underworld king Hades felt that the energy belonged. A Fenrir in the desert of La Tinia had suddenly disappeared. This meant that Fenrir had most likely been killed by humans. But as it was, there was no way the humans there had the power to defeat Fenrir. Therefore, Hades ordered his subordinate, to the Gillis, to go to the desert of Atinian and investigate the matter. The next day, Zhu Liaochun arrived in the city, along with Babin and the others. It was then that Salalai finally voiced the question that had been troubling her for so long. Zhu Liaochun, what element did you wake up to? To defeat the Beast King. Su Liaochun simply replied that he wasn't too sure. Then he asked, in general terms, what elements do priests usually wake up to? Salalai explained that priests are usually in tune with the light, although in rare cases, some awaken others. The elements, with water being the most common alternative. After a moment of reflection, Su Liaochun said that he must have awakened the element of light. After all, Abul had warned him never to reveal that he had obtained the power of chaos. Soon, they arrived at their destination, the Delkston Healing Center. But the instant Gilao Chan walked through the door, a magical green glow enveloped him tightly. In the blink of an eye, he was transported to a strange place. While he was standing confused, a cold voice spoke from behind. Don't be surprised, boy. This is nothing more than a simple teleportation spell. The speaker revealed his identity. 10. The Guardian of Delkston, and this place was reserved only for the strongest within the Latini region. Su feigned ignorance and replied, I'm just an ordinary passerby. Why don't you tell me directly what you want from me? Ix was sincere. He knew that Siliao Liao Chen had almost killed the Beast King by himself, so he wanted to invite him to join the Guardians. If he agreed, they would grant any request he made. Siliao Chen didn't hesitate, turned around and walked away. Sorry, I have no interest in what you offer. What I want is to get out of this damn Latinian desert. Ix was instantly enraged. I had already seen that Gilyachin was aligned with Abul. If that was the case, there was no need for more words today. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Babin suddenly felt a dangerous aura in the air. A moment later, a huge black hand appeared out of nowhere, wrapping around Sally's waist. Fortunately, Boboan reacted quickly and hit the hand with a skill. At that instant, a mysterious figure wrapped in black appeared before them. At the same time, Su Liao King's battle with Ix broke out. However, with the little dragon in his arms, he was unable to defend himself properly. His mind was full of questions. As fellow humans, shouldn't they be finding a way to escape this place together? Why waste time fighting with each other? Ike just let out a cold mocking laugh. So that old man, Yugul, never told you the truth. The so-called guardians are just a name. He went on to explain that they had long since come to an agreement with the monsters. From time to time, they handed over some of the inhabitants of the village for the use of the monsters. And when monsters hunted near the city, the guardians simply turned a blind eye. Abul had known all along. In his mind, sacrificing a part of the weak to preserve the peace of the city was acceptable. Ike's smile became more deranged in the world, while insisting that this was the perfect solution, and asked if Zhu Liao-chan would join them. Su Liao-chan's eyes turned coldly icy. "I'm sorry, but I have no intention of becoming a cowardly turtle like you." Su Liao-chan coldly replied, "It doesn't matter how powerful those are. These supposed monsters or gods of yours, I'll be back no matter what." With that, he left a newbie by his side. "Wait here. Once I take care of this man, I'll get you out of this place." Seeing this, Ix urged him to give up the fight. If he continued to be so stubborn, Ix said, he would make sure that Su Liao-chen would sleep here forever. The moment his words fell, Su Liao-chen's fist roared forward, crashing directly into X's body. The stabbing pain made X's eyes bulge. The next moment, his body flew out. X could hardly believe it. What was the real origin of this young man? Meanwhile, Boboan and the others had also defeated their opponents. This is a sigh of relief. A shadow suddenly appeared behind Salalai. It turned out that the figure they had taken down earlier had only been one of the tunnel men's clones. Black. At the critical moment, Su Liao-chen lashed out with a powerful kick that threw the black-robed man backward. Seeing Su Liao-chen appear, the black-robed man knew instantly. 10 should have been defeated by now. With that, it once again turned into a whirlwind of darkness and disappeared from view. When they returned to the village, Salalai relayed every detail of what had happened to Abul. Abul's expression was grave. He deduced that his enemies had been 10, a wind element mage, and Lucius, a shadow element mage, both guardians of the people. Bob Oven was completely confused. If they were guardians, why would they attack us? Abu slowly explained to him, apart from Ix and Lucius, there were 2 other companions. One of them was Polyp, hailed as the strongest magician on the Braces continent. They were the first humans to reach the Tinia Desert, and the city itself had been built by their hands. Back then, the desert was even more dangerous than now. The first settlers had to escape the pursuit of the monsters, while constantly protecting themselves from the ambushes of other humans, for food and shelter. At that moment of crisis, Pollock discovered the last oasis below where the city now stood. He distributed seeds to the people, taught them how to grow crops, and then established a complete system of government as the city grew. From then on, any desire to leave the Tinia Desert was treated as a threat to the survival of the city. At this point, Jiao Qin interrupted. These men came to an agreement with the monsters, offering innocent people as sacrifices. In exchange for this supposed peace, Grandma Buell, you must have known all this from the beginning. Why did you choose to hide it? His words darkened Abul's face. He admitted that Siliao Chan was right. In fact, he had tolerated this dirty deal, but explained that he had no other choice. On the one hand, there was the family that I could never leave. On the other hand, there was his sense of justice. For anyone, it was an unbearably difficult decision, and, in the end, Abu chose his loved ones for him. In truth, most people would do the same. No one would abandon their closest relatives just to protect strangers. Years ago, Ix and the others had threatened him with the lives of Selali and Bobo. If he dared to expose the secret, he would lose them forever. Suliokin's voice came slowly but steadily. If one had the strength to protect their loved ones and defend justice at the same time, then this so-called dilemma would not exist at all. So, Grandpa Buell, the real reason you got engaged was because you believed in your heart that you could never defeat the 4 guardians, didn't you? Then press harder. If you had been forced to choose between Salalai and Boboan back then, which one would you have chosen? After asking, he added a sincerity. It was apology. This is how I have always thought since childhood. If my word offended you, then I apologize. Abu shook his head at him, saying that there was no need for Su Liao-chen to apologize. The one who really owed an apology was the same one. In fact, he had wronged countless humans. Innocents. He admitted that he had long ago accepted being stuck here forever, but since he met Zhu Liao-chen, hope had started burning in his heart again. He then outlined the next step of his plan. If they wanted to get out of the city, the first thing they had to do was shake the government of the 4 guardians. The Wind Element 10 magician, whom Suliokin had defeated earlier, was only the weakest of the four. The remaining three would not be so easy to handle, and from what Abu knew about his temperaments, once 10 recovered, he would definitely come to seek revenge. Kanza. Therefore, in the coming days, the three of them would have to undergo Abu's hellish training. Only by defeating the four guardians would they be qualified to face the even greater threats lurking inside the desert. After finishing these matters, Su Liao-chun went to a hillside by himself. It was to clear his head. He still had 50 unallocated stat points for killing the Beast King. Currently, the activation of the Chaos Element skill consumed 90% of his health. Although he granted armor ignoring the true damage, the remaining 10% health, and made the risk of being shot into the sky high. Fortunately, the Berserker intelligence potions could restore his health, and were available for direct purchase in the store. So he decided to abandon health and defense for now, pouring all his points into attack. Once he gained powerful recovery abilities, he would reconsider increasing his HP. After finishing his assignments, he noticed a new unread message. When she opened it, she found 100 messages from an account called Exploring Sweetheart. Hijiakin recalled that Exploring Sweetheart was none other than the ID of the Game of Light. Could it be that he could finally contact the outside world? Thinking this, he hurriedly opened the message window. There, he learned that other classmates had also disappeared after playing this game, never returning to school. What surprised him the most was that Li Rugen had never revealed his disappearance. Instead, she said that one day a bald man appeared at the school and told them that Silao Chun and his mother had moved to another city. And in fact, during that time, her mother had chosen to move. Putting things together, he quickly formed a theory. Maybe his consciousness was trapped in this cursed Latini desert, while his body remained in the real world. Most likely, his body survived in a vegetative state, and his mother would have moved to find a hospital capable of caring for him. However, the theory did not add up. The best hospitals in the country were in his old city. Besides, he was sure that his mother did not know any bald men. Just when he felt that his head was about to explode from thinking too much, the little dragonlin suddenly crept up to his side. Without thinking, he pushed the dragon. Instantly, the system displayed a warning /. The dragonlin has been hurt. Punishment activated. The next moment, Su Liao-chan was teleported to a volcanic map. Although he was taken by surprise, he realized that this could serve as an excellent opportunity for training. Meanwhile, inside the healing station, Brule was looking on in pure disbelief. During the day, Abul specifically reminded Brule of one thing. He must keep it a secret, and never reveal the details of how Siliao Chun killed the Beast King. However, what surprised Brule the most was that Abil, one of the legendary 12 heroes, was also trapped in the Latinian desert. Back on his own continent, Abul had once single-handedly defeated the terrifying Troll Keeper, and was famous as the most powerful lightning warrior. The so-called 12 heroes were really the 12 strongest individuals in the entire world. The strongest tournament in the world was held every 5 years. Each guild would send 5 champions, and the 12 guilds that made it to the finals, regardless of victory or defeat, would each choose one hero to represent them. Back then, Abul had been part of a newly formed minor guild. However, they made their way to the finals. In that battle, only Abul survived. Later, he ventured into the Black Sea alone, killed the Quank Troll, and then retreated. Who could have imagined that such a hero would also be trapped in the desert of Latinia? Even someone like Abul had no way out. Meanwhile, Silokin finally managed to complete the system punishment, but this time, the difficulty was much higher than before. Dean, the system requested /. Each time the punishment is activated, the difficulty increases by 10%. Siliao Chun sighed helplessly. It seemed better not to provoke the little one again. At that moment, Dragon Lin was looking at the system window with a strangely thoughtful expression. Siliao Chun was startled. Could it be that the little one could actually see the system? Before he finished speaking, the Dragonlin gave a clear affirmative answer. This only deepened his confusion. Even a power like Buell couldn't perceive the system. However, this Dragonlin, not even human, could. Could their origins be much more extraordinary than imagined? Thinking back, it was right after the Dragon Link appeared that he started receiving messages from Liu Ryan for the first time. Just as his thoughts were getting tangled, Abu arrived to him with Babin, ready to start training. With him came Broly Faloga, now fully recovered. Abul solemnly declared that the training that awaited them would be unimaginably hard, so difficult, that even the 12 heroes would not have been able to complete it. With a wave of his hand, he produced a mysterious artifact. In an instant, a perfect duplicate appeared from in front of each of them. This was a training device created by the great wizard Lincoln, designed for guild tournaments. He could generate a clone identical to the apprentice, equipped with 1.5 times the power, abilities, and elemental strength. Although the clones wouldn't cause any real physical harm, the pain they inflicted was absolutely real. And since this was a team training, once someone received a fatal blow, they would be eliminated immediately, leaving the rest to fight at a disadvantage. Abu explained to him that it was not that he was intentionally increasing the difficulty. It was to prepare them on the way to the temple. Each fallen comrade meant that the survivors would face an even harsher reality. This was a test they couldn't skip. Once everyone entered the training, Yubu returned him to the house and instructed Laxidler to prepare a more hearty dinner. He added that it should be done quickly. I was hoping they would come back soon. Sure enough, after only half an hour, the whole group returned. The Zofa was puzzled. He knew exactly how punishing Abul's training was supposed to be, but he never imagined that they would end up so quickly. After dinner, Abu asked him about the results of the training. Everyone couldn't help but complain. Yes, they were done in less than 30 minutes, but only because they couldn't last that long before being beaten by their doubles. Especially the Su Liao Chen clone. Even 5 of them together might not be able to bring him down. Su Liao Chen then analyzed the fight. It hadn't felt like a simple PV at all, but more like a real PvP duel. The opponents were not monsters of cerebrates. From the very beginning, the 5 clones had separated by scattering to hide in different directions. At first, Si Liao Chun thought that the goal of the clones was to simply separate them and eliminate them one by one. So the 5 of them stayed together the whole time, but unexpectedly, that was exactly what the clones had planned. He alone was pinned down by 4 clones, helplessly watching as his own clone eliminated his teammates one after another, until he was left to face the 5 clones alone. From the very beginning, this battle had been doomed. Abu admitted to him that even the 12 heroes themselves might not be able to complete such a challenge. He praised Zhu Liao Chun, saying that this was precisely the effect he had hoped for. True team battles are not about brute individual strength, but about unleashing the full potential of the group, like pieces on a chessboard, with some destined to attack and others to defend. The clones followed this principle by creating a highly efficient team strategy. For Abul, it was the simplest and most effective tactic, more than enough to overwhelm a rookie team like his. After that, he told everyone to rest in their rooms. Tomorrow morning, there would be another round of training tomorrow, and this time, he would personally guide them. Back in his room, Si Liao Chan started reviewing and analyzing the day's training once more. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed from above his head. It felt like the voice of that heroic man that I had met before. He looked around but saw nothing. With no other option, he lay down and continued to reflect on the training. Then the voice came back, just as I thought. Compared to that beast king who relied only on brute force, these clones clearly have minds much sharper. When he came to, he found himself standing in a mysterious realm, and right in front of him was the heroic man himself. Seeing the confusion on his face, the man assured him not to be so curious. This place was Si Liao Chen's inner spiritual world from the moment he converted. At Si Liao Chen's master, he had been forced to stay here forever. At this point, the man no longer hid his true intention. He admitted that he could have chosen to stay here forever, without revealing anything to Si Liao Chen. But the reason he appeared now was for a purpose. Make it stronger. As he spoke, the man raised his hand and showed only 1% of the power of chaos. Then he revealed a brutal truth. The chaos force, which Siliao Chen had unleashed against the Beast King, had only reached 1,000th of its true power. The moment his words fell, the system window appeared /proof of the Lord of Chaos. He survives for 3 minutes without being defeated to claim victory. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ten was still recovering from his injuries. However, new information arrived. Yubu was openly recruiting him in the city. If this continued, more and more humans would start dreaming of leaving. With that in mind, they decided to summon the desert monsters into the city, allowing the Law Tinia vagabonds to deliver a harsh warning. Meanwhile, Juliao Chan was undergoing the chaos test. He thought to himself, I'm sorry, man. If I can just avoid fighting for 3 minutes, I'll secure the 400,000x first. Then I can train however I want later. But something felt wrong. Why wasn't the old man chasing him? A bad premonition. It arose in his chest. The next second, a blinding light burst over his head. The ground where he had just stepped on opened up into massive abyss. This is not training, this is an execution. If it wasn't for borrowing the Beast King's shield for that 0.5-second reaction window, he would have been crushed into a paste by now. Then the old man's voice thundered. Are you trying to avoid facing me face to face? Su Liao Chun barely managed to block the blow, and muttered to himself. I really underestimated him. The old man roared coldly. Such a cowardly flight is unforgivable. Just as he was preparing to attack again, Su Liao Chun suddenly pointed behind him. Old man, look, what is that? At the same instant, he turned and ran out at full speed. Glancing at the countdown, he saw that there were 2 minutes left. Just a little more, and the test will be mine, he thought. Hey, old man. Can we take a break first? Let me rest for a few minutes before we fight again, he shouted. The old man's face was cold as ice. Why are you always running? An enemy would never give you a chance to breathe. He had barely uttered the words when he instantly appeared behind Siliao Chun. This is your first lesson, Siliao Chun. Acting fast, Siliao Chun unleashed a quick strike, narrowly dodging the attack. Relief came over him. Thank goodness it was a physical blow just now. Using a quick punch, a guaranteed hitting skill, was the only way to escape and get away unscathed. The old man looked at Siliao Chen in shock. How did this guy suddenly appear behind him? He had not caught any trace of movement. It felt more like teleportation. Could it be? Meanwhile, Siliao Chen was calculating the remaining time. The cooldown of his ability was 5 minutes. If the old man attacked again, this test would fail. Countdown, 30 seconds. He put his gun down and said, let me rest for a bit before we continue. After this, I swear I will never run again. The old man agreed. Okay, but you have to tell me what that move was just now. Silio Chin thought to himself, what a move. It must mean quick hit. At that moment, the system notification appeared, countdown complete. Test passed. 400,000x burned. Increased host level. Su Liao Qin quickly explained, that's all it was. These are just skills granted by the system. When I leveled up, I used a quick hit to dodge your attack. Why is that? Is there something wrong with that, old man? The old man frowned. I don't understand what you're saying, but that quick hit, I feel like I've seen it before. Juliao Chun was perplexed. Could it be that someone else has used this skill before? The old man thought a lot. His body remembered something during the fight. It felt so familiar. But against whom? Damn it. I still couldn't remember. Juliao Chun guessed. Abul once told me the legend of Esiodo. If this old man gave me the power of chaos, then it must be Esiodo. Knowing his name could help him regain his memory. He said aloud, well, old man, I think I know who you are. You are Esiodo, the man who once killed the evil god, Morpheus, and saved the world. Well, old man, does that jog your memory? The old man's heart trembled. Siodo, why does it sound so familiar? Meanwhile, Boblin got up in the middle of the night. He caught a sickening stench in the air. Suddenly, he remembered what it was. Before he could react, a dark shadow swooped down on him. It was the tramp launching a sneak attack under the cover of night. Baboon's hatred flared up. There was no mistake. It was him. This was the beast that killed his parents. Even if he turned to ashes, I would never forget him. He had trained tirelessly all these years by this time. He never thought that the creature would come directly into his reach. Bob Oven gripped his gun tightly, growling, "I'll rip your skin off piece by piece, break your bones one by one, and spill your blood on my parents' graves." The next second, he launched his attack. Meanwhile, the guardians in the shadows watched mockingly, amused by how well their plan was unfolding. 10 frowned, but the city is still intact, and only they are being attacked. One that seemed too fake. The man in black scoffed, "You have become cautious, Ix. I have already summoned other beasts to the village. Once we attract Yu-Gi-Oh, the dojo itself will kill him. Ix, take care of those newcomers. And this time, don't stop us. After that new child priest, he's mine. I just hope it lasts long enough. If it ends too quickly, it's not funny." Meanwhile, in the inner realm, Siryakin firmly said to the old man, "It must be Kyoto. The place where I freed, it could only be the Tartarus. Well, man, does that bring anything back to you?" The old man calmly replied, "No, my mind is still blank." Juliao Chen was stunned. This doesn't make sense. In every atom or movie, just knowing the name is supposed to awaken lost memories. The old man said flatly, "I have no impression of this world at all. A name is just a label. Even if I'm a Saiyan, I can't remember what I once experienced. But your movement, for the first time, gave me a feeling of familiarity, as if I finally found a thread that binds me to this world." Celia Akin thought to himself, "And what about me? Why did I come here? Why was I able to free him? Why was the power of chaos granted to me?" These mysteries accumulate one after another. If the old man really is Kyoto, then, once he regains his memory, maybe he will have the answers I have been looking for.